Welcome to Capital W. We're here with Deb Jones for our Take 5 series. We're in Deb's beautiful home in Goochland, Virginia. Deb is Senior Vice President, Capital Markets at Citizens, and I'm so glad, Deb, that you're here with us. Deb has been a friend of mine for a couple of decades, and I've so enjoyed being with you, Deb, in all of our different capacities as friends, as peers, as clients, as comrades in arms on all the fun in capital markets and the industry as well. And I'd like to go ahead and just jump on into our Take 5 questions. So same 5 questions that we ask all of our guests. And the first one really is to describe yourself and your journey in capital markets and how you got to where you are today. So take it away, if you will.
No, well, first of all, thank you. I'm excited about Capital W and this opportunity, so thank you. I started, I'll actually talk about college. I didn't go into college saying I'm going to be in mortgage banking, but I went to Sweetbriar, a small liberal arts school, and I ended up majoring in economics and business administration. And it was interesting. I became fascinated, with some of the concepts in corporate finance and things like that. And but it required an internship. So the internship, ironically, just landed me in mortgage banking. And so that gave me some doors that opened up for me with, summer jobs, management training program, and going through different areas to get a feel and some experience throughout the whole mortgage kind of life cycle, which is what capital markets really entails. So that was great. And as I evolved through my career, I did do different things. I worked in technology and went from a manual platform to a loan origination system. And then I went into capital markets officially and never really left, except along the way, I ended up, going to the Resolution Trust Corporation in Atlanta. And, that was really because I wanted to step outside my comfort zone. I would tell you that what I've learned now, 40 years later, is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so worked with all men at the RTC, but it was probably one of the best jobs in the most strange way. And then worked for a Wall Street firm, Greenwich Capital, and then did my own company for 4 years. And I have an entrepreneurial family. So we did a variety of mortgage services, a lot of securitization for small banks. But then I, went back to my old company as a consultant and just to install QRM, which, we're both very fond of.
Yes.
And I just missed capital markets. So I went back. It was American Home Funding at the time, and it evolved into multiple companies. And so I never actually left. I'm with the legacy company, after multiple mergers and acquisitions and a lot of management change and a lot of strategic direction. But I really did expand my career with capital markets. At one time, I was chief administrative officer, so I had some unique opportunities to be in charge of other areas, including capital markets. And that took some style flexing, like having to deal with different parts of the organization. So what's fascinating is, I kept feeling like, should I leave somewhere, leave to go somewhere else just to keep myself fresh and in the industry and, known,
Right.
which might lead to other opportunities, right? So, but we had so much change and so many directions. I think I've had 14 bosses in 18 years, but it was cool because each time was a new journey, each year, each strategy changed. So
Sure.
It's been great.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the entrepreneurial spirit that is within your family. And so we do have right here a bottle of Square One vodka. And so in addition to being very much involved in capital markets, and you are a co-founder of Square One. Would you tell us a little bit about that really quickly? And I'm a big fan, by the way, of Square One. And it was one of Oprah's favorite things.
Yes.
So, this is not just a still in the backyard.
No.
This is the real deal.
Thanks. Now, my sister is the one behind it, but she asked me to be her co-founder and investor. So we're totally women-owned, and we've been in business 18 years. We've been small on purpose. That's good and bad. So we've learned a lot from the journey, from the challenges in the industry, the businesses, the pandemic.
Yes.
Threw a wrench in things, but it's a great product. And we're everywhere and nowhere. I mean, you can find us sometimes in Europe. But you can't find us unless you go to one ABC store in Richmond,
right,
type of thing.
right,
So,
right.
it's interesting because it's taught me about strategy, but I've also been able to take my banking strategy, which has nothing to do necessarily with it, but apply common principles, so it's fascinating.
I do think capital markets people acquire skill sets that are transferable to all kinds of different areas, and it's because of the risk management focus of what's next, what could be, what haven't I thought about, and how do I reach out and find the appropriate parties to help me mitigate that risk. So collaboration.
It's true, and then you think about pricing for your sales to drive volume, and scale. Risk management to make sure you have a good, strong asset. So,
Well, great. Well, so let's go on to, if you will, talk about your current position, your responsibilities, organizational and industry activities. You have been quite active in our industry, so I'll let you just tell the folks what all you've been doing and what you continue to do.
Yeah, I run a traditional capital markets trading desk. We had 3 channels. We now have 2, just because of the current environment: retail and correspondent. Loan delivery, product development, investor relations, repurchase, credit administration. So the other thing that I really find interesting and love, and this goes back to my background on Wall Street and RTC, is the balance sheet optimization piece. So I kind of represent mortgage. We'll do strategic backbook sales or acquisitions. We look at other, potential opportunities to help with balance sheet management the Treasury and the top of the house want to achieve.
Right.
So that keeps you a little fresh and on the edge with, I remember back in the day we called them CMOs, and then they turned into REMICs, and now they're CRTs and CLNs and all that. So it's really fascinating, and that's fun inside, in addition to, the GSE, hedging, risk management, product management, and so forth. But what's different is technology, regulation, because grew up in the pre-regulation environment. So, but industry-wise, that was a way to stay at the same company with a lot of its change, but some of it the same, and branch out so that I didn't feel like I had to go somewhere else to get that feel of change and energy and new people. So I, got my CMB in 2011. I got involved with different committees and, basically said to the Capital Markets Committee one day I'd love to be in the leadership role to help. And so I did spend the last 4 years in the vice chair and chair role. And it was 2 of us that were female for the first time to, chair and vice chair, which there was only 1 female before us. Now, what I've seen is you and I used to be one of the few women walking in the room, and now I see a whole lot more women there. But it'll be nice to see that. But I've also worked with the Housing Policy Council, Urban Institute. So there's a lot of great organizations, and if you get involved, it's a great networking thing.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely. Well, and lots of diverse topics. And so getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think that's a great phrase, and going and exploring different areas within the industry and having experts that can be there to accelerate your understanding.
Absolutely. And I think about my new role is Secretary of CMB Society, and that's very educational. So I hope there's something we can talk about as fellow CMBs with Capital W.
I think so. I think so. Well, so kind of along those lines, Deb, what do you deem the most pressing issues for the mortgage industry, and how do those issues affect capital markets?
Technology, let me start there first. The evolution, we just keep iterating, reiterating, and it doesn't seem to be evolving as efficiently and fast enough to get the cost to produce down. It keeps going up because we keep reinvesting.
Yes.
And that worries me, because it's a lot for certain companies, especially more regional banks versus independents that have a little more freedom with their capital management, being a monoline. But I think it'll get there. I think that the regulation is concerning. It was needed. I think that the Great Recession pointed out where we were not managed closely enough.
Yes.
So how does that affect capital markets? Some of their ideas are probably appropriate. So, for example, the DTI was very involved in that, being part of the Capital Markets Committee. And behind the scenes with some of these trades that did a lot of the heavy lifting, obviously. And if they had really worked with the CFPB on TRID, they would have said, yeah, the DTI is a risk management pricing item, but actually because of TRID and change of circumstances,
Right.
it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, that continues, like with Basel III. Now we're hearing, because it took all the energy of the entire industry in a short number of months, 120, 180 days, and now we're hearing they're going to really look at it. So, banks and regulators are already kind of preparing for it might come. I better get ahead of it, because the investors on Wall Street investing in your stock on a public traded company are like, are you capitalized? What's going to happen to you in 2 years? Right. So that's how I see it affecting capital markets. And I mean that in a broader sense than actually just GSE capital markets at the mortgage pipeline desk. But your portfolio may not be accessible to you as a product set, and that could revive the private market. But I think it also has a domino effect that's negative with the GSEs, where they may be adversely selected for affordable and not have their mix of products to do the cross subsidization.
Right. So their own production portfolio will be impacted by a ruling that is for large depositories.
Right.
Impacting their activity.
Right. There's a domino effect that could happen. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think because mortgage banking is the beginning and the end of the life cycle of the loan, you got to pay attention to all these regulations and how they could end up impacting selling, servicing, pricing.
Yes.
Customers at the end of this. So we're going to get more unaffordable if Basel III were to go through.
Unintended consequences.
Yes.
Well, so switching gears a little bit then, what advice would you provide to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in mortgage capital markets? Sounds like there are lots of different places that you can enter into capital markets. What would your advice be?
There are. I mean, I think in one sense, you could start in any department, learn that aspect, and if you can move your career through other job openings within the company, to do kind of a manager training program for yourself if there's not the one that's offered. But the other thing I would say that wasn't as big of a job back in our day, way back, not that it wasn't present, but the analyst job, right? I think quantitative analytics and having the skill sets with data management are paramount, because we have so many technology and advanced tools versus the HP12C and a piece of paper, eraser, and a pencil, which is how I did the mark to market.
For those listening that don't know what the HP12C is, it's a calculator.
It's a calculator, and I still have my original.
Yes,
it's on my third battery.
I happen to have found two of those. My husband was a mortgage loan officer, and I found two of them in a junk drawer in the very back the other day.
That's great. So I think those are you can do the operational piece, because then you're going to learn the connectivity. When you're looking at data as an analyst, you're going to say, well, I don't really know the concept behind this data, right? But if you do the do the more hands-on operational piece in post-closing or loan delivery, or the lock desk is a really good entrance point, or an assistant on the trading desk where you might be doing confirms. You should get both. You should have both.
Yes,
is what I would say.
Agreed. Well, then, what recommendation would you give to organizations seeking to improve diversity within their capital markets departments? We've talked about walking into committees and not seeing too many women there, but that's not just all to women being underrepresented. There are other groups that are underrepresented, I would assert, in capital markets.
Absolutely.
So if a company is looking to try to diversify their capital markets department, or folks that are working with capital markets, what kind of recommendations might you offer them?
I think they really need to step up and support the educational piece. That can be the Mortgage Bankers School of Mortgage Banking, which is a robust program, 1, 2, and 3, working towards your CMB, but the CMB shouldn't be a Girl Scout badge. As you know, that's a high mark, and you need to have a number of years of experience, plus the ability to articulate and be able to sit on an airplane next to a congressman, and if he asks you, what business are you in, you should be able to talk about it, even if you don't have to be expert, but you should know enough. But the education, and I think if you do get involved in committees as you come up the career path, you have to earn the right to be a leader at the table at these committees, and you have to earn the right to be a CMB. But get involved early and be on the committee. But to be on the committee, you need to be able to contribute. So don't be on the committee to check a box.
Right.
And I'm seeing a lot of that lately, by the way.
Oh, are you?
So I would say, ladies or minorities, don't hurt us all by not pulling your weight and being authentic at your job, because that's not going to help us. So your employers need to give you that opportunity, but you need to deliver. You need to commit to contributing.
Right.
And I think if you can do that, then the best candidate will be chosen. And that's what we want.
Deb, totally agree with you. And, coming up, I would call it intestinal fortitude. To be in capital markets, you have to have thick skin. You can't be easily deterred by a challenge. So whatever your make or model is, you have to be willing to put the work in and to arise to any challenge.
I agree. And you're going to learn to be an influencer with that intestinal fortitude, but also when to take the option that might be given to you don't agree with. So there's a lot of give and take in that, because there's a lot of different viewpoints. There's no one black and white right answer necessarily all the time. There's a lot of strategy.
Right.
And so, that's a great point about the intestinal fortitude.
A lot of unknowns out there, so you have to roll with the punches.
Yes.
Well, that concludes the serious part of our interview. But I like to do a fast five here so we get to know you. So just really silly, quick questions, but what's your favorite food?
Cheeseburger.
Oh, I just had one last night at our favorite place. Any hobbies or special interests? I know the answer to this question.
I know you do. I am an equestrian horse fanatic, and I live here on this small farm with 4 horses. I'm like the cat lady now. I have way too many, which means I'll be working forever. That I love horseback riding the most. Yes.
Wonderful. Is there a book, a periodical, a podcast that you would recommend to folks?
I like the podcast Conspiracy Theories.
Yes.
I think Molly Brandenburg was one of the co-hosts. I don't remember the other gentleman's name. But what I love about it is it talks about fact, fiction, and sometimes things that appear to be the truth are not always the truth, and so forth. So, but it's historical too. They go way back to the 15th century. They go to the JFK. They go to the Twin Towers. They go to, very interesting historical events, and I learned a lot from it. So it was fascinating, intriguing, and educational.
Yeah. A lot of analysis. And I think that's
analysis.
That's always interesting. Well, how about your favorite musician or musical group?
Pink Floyd. Period. Paragraph. End of story.
Classic.
Love it. Yes.
And then lastly, if you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
Probably Europe, where the mountain ranges are, and the Alps, Italian, French Alps, Switzerland. I love mountains. I love rugged mountains. I love Montana, our Rockies. So mountains, wherever they may be, but probably Central Europe. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. Love to go with you.
Okay, let's do it. We've done crazier things.
Well, Deb, thank you so much for joining us.
You.
I really appreciate it. And be sure to tune in for our next Take 5. There's always something interesting to learn about our folks in our industry. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks.